Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball. Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Welcome in. Episode 129. Today we're drunk on the Fightins. It's a midday Monday, but Eric, we're on summer break, so time is really just a number at this point.
And that's the best thing about this teacher lifestyle right there, Don.
You got that right. And listen, I got to start by saying, I love this fan base and this Philadelphia fan base. To see people this morning tailgating, camping out in line at 3:30 in the morning for the Kelly Green release at the stadium. Not only at the stadium, but there's a Eagles apparel store in Cherry Hill. There's one out in Lancaster. There were lines everywhere. So just love this fan base. Just shout out to everybody that got up. Saw someone was bringing Jell-O shots.
Any reason to tailgate. And
this fan base is just different.
I feel it's been anticipated for a while, so I can see why they're doing it. To me, though, it's going to be available, tomorrow and up until the regular season. So I'm going to wait a little bit to decide if I'm getting the Kelly Green.
You can buy it online.
You can too.
You can, but listen, if you're an OG like me, right? You already got some of the you got some of the flying bird stuff already laying around the house,
Yep, exactly.
But this is just it's a good place because we needed some good news. This Phillies team, it's just not good. It's been bad, frustrating, stupid, idiotic. Listen, my barometer is always when I'm sitting watching the game with my wife. If she realizes that things are stupid, then it's really bad because she's going, don't these guys get paid millions of dollars to not do this stuff? This is the kind of stuff, it's stuff that you would see in spring training, stuff that you would see in Little League. And it's right at this crucial point in the season where you could really be making moves because the teams around you are not playing really well. And I don't even know what to make of it.
It's frustrating. It's confusing. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I feel like they didn't even play a great series against the Orioles until the last game on Wednesday. But taking 2 or 3 from the Orioles, I'm like, okay, they're probably a top team. Or I think they're the top team in the AL at this point. So it's okay, maybe take some win a series against a good team. Now we have a pretty nice schedule coming up through most of August here. And then you turn around and lose 2 or 3 to Pittsburgh in just pretty, terrible fashion. So I don't know. Yesterday's game, like you said, it's just the mistakes that they're making are so avoidable. And you just, we've talked about it earlier on, or going back to, I think, May and June. You can only say it's early for so long. We're in the second half now. Let's see All-Star break. The things the mistakes they're making, these stupid base running mistakes, the stupid fielding mistakes. And it's not even a guy booting a ball, right? It's yesterday you have Turner and Sosa crashing into each other and drop a fly ball. It's that is something that high school kids wouldn't do. I mean, I don't understand just the miscommunication. And believe me, I love Rob Thompson. I'm not on the fire Rob Thompson train here. I want to put that out there because I know there's a lot of people right now who are kind of off on him. But we started off here talking about the Eagles. If an NFL team was making the same amount of mental stupid mistakes that this Phillies team is making, wouldn't every fan be calling for his head? I'm not yet. I'm not. But at the same time, when does something happen to get corrected here? I mean, you have guys who don't make any adjustments at the plate. You have got miscommunication in now the infield and outfield, and just the base running. I've never seen a team run the bases in a more stupid manner than this team. Now, yesterday, with the whole Harper Bohm thing, blame can be kind of thrown around different places there, but it's just to me, it's something like it's a storyline all the time, and it's not being corrected, and that's the frustrating part here.
His shine wore off like instantaneously. Like we talk about Rob Thompson a year ago. My man could not have made any mad moves. Nobody could have said, right, a bad thing, right? Like the t-shirts, I'm with Philly Rob. Like that he was at the top of the mountaintop. And I don't know what happened, because it's like just like you said, like the mistakes are like juvenile mistakes, but it's not that the mistakes are happening. It's that the mistakes happen over and over and over, and none of it's being corrected. That's the part for me that I have a really hard time with, because I'm going, I get it. If that stuff happens in May, right? You're integrating new player into the infield. I get it, right? But Trey Turner came off a World Baseball Classic where like he couldn't have played better, and then it just like evaporated, and nothing has been like. It took until last week for Rob Thompson to take him out of the lineup, to sit him down, to be like it's like the inmates running the asylum. And I don't understand like why there isn't like a sit down, like close door, shut the doors, like throw baseball bats all over the place, swing Gatorade coolers. Like there's almost no emotion. And like, that's the part that I'm really struggling with, because I want to see emotion out of this team. I want to know that they're just as pissed as we are. But like, you don't see anybody like walking in, and I know nobody wants Bryce Harper to do anything, but like throw a Gatorade cooler, like take a swing at the cooler, throw the sunflower seeds all over the place. Like, I don't really care, but like show some emotion so that we know that like you see that we're just as pissed as we are.
Yeah, and I've been saying this now since pretty much all season, because I've been saying the same thing. I feel like, everyone talks, Schwarber's like kind of the clubhouse guy, but you don't see anyone really stepping up and being the guy to call out this team. Like, again, you don't have to do it in the media. You don't have to throw your guys under the bus, but at the same time, have a closed door meeting, do something like Carlos Santana smashing the TVs or whatever, 2018, 2019, right, whatever it was. Like, not saying you have to go to that extreme, but just show that you're frustrated, because, I can't sit here watching these post-game conferences with Thompson where he's like, oh, they'll figure it out. It's like, dude, it's almost August 1st. Like, it's almost a trade deadline. They're not figuring it out. Like, someone has to step up and just start lighting some fire, because this team is so much better than what they're playing right now. And I just feel like, last year Thompson was pushing all the right buttons, right? He was using guys in the bullpen the right way. He was getting guys in there that Girardi wasn't. Like, look at Bryson Stott. I'll get to him in a minute. But, it's like this year, it almost feels like everything he's trying is kind of backfiring. It's almost like he's trying to do too much now rather than just let these guys play, which is what he was doing last year. Constantly shifting up the lineup. And I know what people all over the place are like, well, this guy shouldn't be hitting here. This guy shouldn't be hitting here. It's like, okay, well, you don't know the conversations that are going in the clubhouse. You don't know, which guys like hitting where or whatever. But you got to let guys get comfortable in a certain spot, I think, before you start moving everything around. Turner should have been dropped. I like Stott hitting that 5-6 hole because he's been doing really well with it. I don't think we need to move him to lead off or second, because, he's going to hit with guys on base. And look at the rest of the team. No one else is doing it. So I don't know. It just feels it's a weird vibe right now. I'm really hoping. I think I'm just looking at the schedule going ahead. We have Miami coming up, then Kansas City, then Washington, and then Minnesota, who's like, okay. But so for the first 2 weeks of August, really, we don't have a difficult schedule. And like, if there's a chance for us to start gaining ground or making up some ground here in the wild card, this is the time to do it.
Right. Like,
but something's got to something's got to happen.
Like, this series right now, it to me is really an inflection point in the season, this series with Miami, and it's hard to say that about a series in the middle, at the beginning of August, but you're a half game back of them for the last wild card spot. If for some reason you can go down to Miami, get it together, and take all three, you're sitting right at the top of the wild card now, and you are in the driver's seat. You really have a good chance at separating yourself from the team that you're battling with in your division. And you really shouldn't be. If you look at the rosters, Miami, yes, they're young. Yes, they've got a lot of young talent, but this roster should be better. Like the at-bats look like nonsensical. They look, again, like nobody's really working on anything, because the same at-bats, like Castellanos has looked really bad since
he's been rough again.
Since the All-Star, since his appearance in the All-Star game. I mean, I saw some statistics, and I don't even care about the numbers. He's just looked bad at the plate, taking bad swings, kind of like Turner. Like Turner's had some really bad at-bats. And I know at the end of the season, right, you got to look at the whole baseball card. I know that, but it doesn't make a difference right now, because you're watching this team play just kind of like half-assed. And you're right. And to go after Miami, you're going to come home and you're going to play 7 games against teams that you should beat. There's no reason why you should not win the next 3 series. And that, to me, could be the jumping off point. And to go back to a guy that you talked about, Stott, I know that we've seen this a bunch on Twitter from a bunch of different accounts, but Stott should not be platooned at all anymore. Like, you have seen enough in his first 2 seasons to see that he is an everyday plug and play, write him in, etch it in stone, give him the day off 1 day a week type of player.
Especially when his platoon partner is Josh Harrison.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I mean,
that's
one thing. If you can have a guy who, okay, at least he can hit lefties well. Stott hits lefties better than Harrison does. Harrison offers no value to this team, and obviously, we'll talk about it, I'm sure, later. But like with the trade deadline coming up, I'm guessing he'll move on if there's a move that happens here. But I mean, the fact that, and I think they're playing. I don't think they have a day off until August 14th or so. So I know they're playing a bunch in a row. Maybe he wanted to get Stott a day off against a real tough left-hander in Rich Hill. But it's one of those things. I don't know if he's trying to get one early or what he's trying to do here. But Stott is not a platoon guy. He's young. After playing a lot last year, and he played deep into the season, he should. I know sometimes younger guys have a tough time adjusting from that college or high school or minor league schedule that's less games to a major league schedule. But Stott's proved he can do it. I'm not saying he should play 162, but there's no reason that he should be a platoon guy at this point.
And the point that Josh Harrison is like, he's a guy that I'm at the point now where I've seen enough. I don't need to see any more of him. And I really hope that there's some kind of trade deadline move where they're able to bring in someone else so that he can just be like DFA'd. You can just let him go. Because like you said, you are not getting any valuable production from him at all. So it'd be one thing if the guy that he was platooning with was just as competitive, but you're not getting any of that production. So it's like, when I look at this lineup, I'm like, that's a dude. He's basically been your MVP, and your MVP is a guy that you're platooning. Make that make sense? Like, it doesn't. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating to see. And you had a chance yesterday to again win the series against a team that is 9.5 games out of the wild card. Like, they are in the bottom 4. They're going to be sellers at the trade deadline. And you went in there and played so sloppy and still almost won the series.
Yeah, and your starter carried a no-hitter through 5 yesterday too, and was pulled after 73 pitches. Now I saw afterwards, he was battling a stomach bug or something. They couldn't let him go one more. I mean, at that point, you already threw 5 innings. Unless something was really going on, and Christopher Sanchez said, "Hey, I need to come out of this game." I think you kind of got to read the room there and say, "Okay, now I know Sir Anthony comes in. Normally, you're thinking Sir Anthony's not going to implode." He's looked pedestrian this year, I'll say. I know there was injuries at one point earlier on in the season, but he's had some games where he looks really good, some games where he doesn't look great. He's been he's been a little inconsistent, and that's a little scary to me, just knowing how good this bullpen's been, and that Sir Anthony's going to be a guy that you're going to have to rely on in a stretch run here. So we'll see. But yeah, I just think like this whole series was just really disappointing and really deflating after coming off a series where you beat, the top team in the top division in baseball. So I don't know. I mean, again, there's a chance we're talking about it here. I'm really hoping that, next time we're talking here that we do win the games we're supposed to win here against Florida, Washington, and Kansas City. But it's just something's got to happen because it's just frustrating at this point.
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, Sir Anthony, he has not been what as advertised. But someone needs to get Christopher Sanchez some Pepto. Like, get him some Pepto-Bismol earlier in the day. Like, give him some Ritz crackers. Like, we all know how to fight this here. Like, you took out a guy who had not given up a hit, who was dealing yesterday after he's only throwing 73 pitches in 5 innings. It's like the moves, it's like making moves to make moves, not making moves because they make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know, the way the game is now, you take guys out of no hitters or whatever, but that's usually if they're at 90 to 100 pitches already in the 5th inning, then you let a bullpen come in and do that.
Right.
But he had at least another inning, I think, in the tank. I don't know. The positive news, which I don't know if we've had any yet, has been Christopher Sanchez has been really, really good in that number 5 spot, though. A really pleasant surprise.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been great to see, because that was really one of the big issues. And I think that kind of helps tame some minds about what we need at the trade deadline at some point. But
yeah, absolutely.
One good thing we saw from that series was that Christopher Sanchez still is pitching well. So
yeah. And listen, a lot of people were calling about this 5th starter thing a long while, right? But if you look at this is from Chris Foley on Twitter. In his 9 starts, he's thrown 47 1/3, given up 35 hits, 8 walks, 41 strikeouts.
Yeah.
He's got the 2.66 ERA. He's got a .91 WHIP. And he's got 0 wins.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those numbers
this is not a Christopher Sanchez problem.
No,
he has come up and done everything that you've needed him to do. It's just that you're not getting the production on the offensive end, right? The amount of times that they have had the bases loaded in the last 2 weeks and not scored any runs. Like the one game, the one time in the Pirates game, they had bases loaded, no outs, and they scored no runs.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just not smart, productive baseball, and it's just maddening.
Yeah, it's been really frustrating, and I think I would say that all the blame. I'm not even going to put a percentage on. I'm pretty sure all the blame goes to this offense.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I when was the last time they scored, had a game where they scored over 10 runs? I mean, I'm not saying that's the norm, but you just don't see it. We're winning games because the pitching keeps the opponents from scoring more than 5. And that's the only thing. If they score more than 4 or 5 runs, we have no chance. You got it?
Saturday, July 1st.
Wow.
Against the Nationals.
A month tomorrow. There we go. A month tomorrow.
19. They scored 9. That was the game. They scored 19-4. They won 19-4. But it's also that was sandwiched, if you remember, in between 2 losses to the Nationals at home. Right. They lose Friday night. They lose Sunday afternoon, but then they win 19-4 on Saturday night.
Since I can remember, every time this team scores more than 10 runs, they don't score again for at least 2 or 3 days after that. I feel like that's been Phillies. It doesn't matter who's on the team. It doesn't matter who the manager is. It doesn't matter what the roster looks like. If a Phillies team scores more than 10 runs, they're not going to score more than 3 runs for about 3 straight days. So I guess that's just what we've come to expect. But I mean, you got these guys, and I know the trade deadline's coming up, and that's a big topic of conversation right now among baseball. But the Phillies realistically shouldn't need a major impact trade at this point. The biggest impacts would be Turner hitting, Schwarber hitting. Now, I know Schwarber's got a lot of home runs right now, but other than that, really, what else has he been doing? And Castellanos he had a great start. I'm really chalking what he's doing right now up to a slump because you don't have 3 months of really good baseball and then all of a sudden just be terrible for the rest of the season. Right. So I think Castellanos will swing his way out of this one a little bit. Turner's not a slump anymore. This is problematic. I've been seeing WIP putting out polls again. Would you undo the Turner signing? No, I would not undo the Turner signing yet. It's year 1 of 11. Look at what Castellanos did last year. Like, he's going to turn it around. He's too good of a player not to. But, I mean, he's a reason that this club is in the predicament they're in. He's not hitting. He's not fielding. Schwarber, kind of the same thing. So, it's like you can't rely on Stott, Marsh. They've been the only 2 guys. And Bryce has been a good hitter. I'm not really putting Bryce in this mix here. But Marsh still has the highest OPS on the team, I think. Stott is the only guy who knows how to actually have a good at-bat. And then Bohm is not actually having a great season if you look at it statistically, but I feel like he's been coming up with a lot of clutch hits. That's why his RBI total is so high. Yeah. But you're relying on guys who are kind of on the younger side here and not making the money when you have all these guys making the money who aren't really doing what they need to do. So the biggest improvements that this club could make is just having guys do what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, listen, like you're talking about Real Muto. Real Muto has had some really, really not productive at bats, but Schwarber's got the lowest batting average out of anybody that's played a position all year, right? He's batting 183 right now. I don't love it. Like the Bohm stuff is kind of been hit and miss, but he has had some really, really clutch at bats. It's the back half of this lineup. It's all the guys that we thought would be like those ancillary pieces that you're getting really good, that you're getting timely, good production. And it's really the only reason why they're in and winning games lately, right? When you look at and I want to talk about some bright spots here, right? The play that we've seen in the field from Johan Rojas has been everything as advertised.
Yeah, he's been good.
And to me, it looks like you got yourself a young, fast center fielder that you can just plug and play, right? Just take him out there and let him roam. I like the combination of him and Marsh in the outfield late in the games because you can cover more ground because you got a little bit more speed. But the play of Harper at first was something that we really questioned a lot, right? And right, if we want to try to catch Miami, we got to be able to put it together on both sides. But I love what I've seen out of Harper at first base.
Yeah, he's looked really good there so far. I think just his athleticism makes him be able to do things that you don't see other first basemen be able to do. His decision making sometimes is still a little questionable. I think it was one of the Orioles games. He fields the ball, the pitcher's run over to cover. Bryce kind of steps weird on the bag and gets his cleat stepped on too. I'm just like, Bryce, I know it's still learning a new position here, but that's one you might just be able to toss over. You don't have to do everything yourself. I know I know it's not in the nature of his game to do it, but yeah, he's been good over there so far, which is nice because then you can get more of that Marsh Rojas situation out in center and left field. Yeah. But yeah, going with the comment on the screen there, this is the series where we're going to have to catch Miami, I think. And Miami's falling apart. I'm not a big run differential is not the end all be all of everything, but I was looking at run differential this morning. I was looking at that every now and then. The Braves obviously are like plus 150, 160 something in terms of run differential. They're on a different playing field at this point. The Phillies are only plus 8, which is a little alarming. Miami's like minus 20 something. So overall, we're a better team than Miami. Miami, I think, got lucky in the beginning. They're starting to kind of come back to earth a little bit.
Yeah.
Another team, though, that kind of came out of nowhere here, not come out of nowhere, but in terms of run differentials, the Cubs, they're at a plus 57 run differential. And there was a lot of talk about trying to get Bellinger. The Cubs are probably looking at some of these at their position here and probably thinking we're not even that strong of a division. I mean, the Reds are playing really well right now. The Brewers, I don't think, are that good. But I know they finally said yesterday that Bellinger was not going to be traded. And it's like, why blame them? Like they have a legit shot here. I think they're only 3.5 games out of the wild card at this point, and they're playing really hot. So the Phillies, I think, will catch Miami. They have to do their job though, and just worry about some of these other teams that are even behind them. San Diego is starting to heat up a little bit. Like I said, Chicago, but then you also got to worry about San Francisco falling out of place here. So it's going to be a tight wild card race here. And if they don't start getting it together offensively, it's going to be a really, really stressful and potentially disappointing September and October.
Yeah. And listen, like last year, right, they end up creeping in at the very end. How like that series, what was this? Was it the series? What was the series last year where they lost late? Was that in Washington? Was it Chicago?
I think it was Chicago. I feel like Chicago, every time we have a series against them, they dash our chances of something. But
we had thought the season was like they were out of the playoffs at that point, and they cardiac turn it around. They're able to get themselves that very last wild card, sneak in, go down to St. Louis. Right. And we know the rest of the story from there, but like you have a better team than you had last year.
Mm-hmm.
Your starting lineup is better. Your starting pitching has been better. Your bullpen has been better, but it's just not translating on the field because of the stupid mistakes. It's just bad.
Definitely. I mean,
just bad. But like to circle back, like the play of Harper at first has really been a good eye opener for what we're translating for, I think, to project his kind of career out in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
At some point he was going to have to transition to a less stressful, and I say stressful, right? They're playing baseball. I'm putting it in air quotes here. At some point he was going to have to, he was probably the likelihood that he was going to transition to a different position other than the outfield was going to happen at some point in his career. Mm-hmm. Now I think moving forward, it now just gives this team more flexibility. And then not only this year, but in the next couple of years, that like, if they want to give him a break from the outfield, they can always put him in at first. They have the flexibility to use him as the DH. I like that for him. It wasn't a horrible transition. He wasn't struggling with it. So that like, and it really does alleviate some stuff for the trade deadline. I'm perplexed, right? When we come back from this commercial break, we're going to talk about the trade deadline stuff, but good God, I don't know what this team needs because they have so much talent. So we'll talk about it on the other side. We'll be back. Give us a minute and we'll check back in with you.
Von C. Brewing Company is a 20-barrel, 16,000-square-foot microbrewery with a 2,500-square-foot tasting room, including a spacious outside beer garden in Norristown, PA, in the heart of Montgomery County. The Von C. family is part of the family that started C. Schmidt and Son Brewing in 1860. Stop in Wednesday through Sunday and taste a variety of draft and 16-ounce cans of originally brewed beer and tell them the Drunk on Broad crew sent you. Von C. Brewing is located at 1210 Stenbridge Street, Suite 300 in Norristown. Cheers.
Team Clicks are the only glasses for real sports fans. With interchangeable arms, you can support all of your favorite teams, or even make and create custom options as well. These die-hard sports fans have realized that sports fans needed something other than face paint to show their love and passion for their teams. Go to teamclicks.com/DOB and show your love for your hometown team.
La Torin's curated collection of men's and women's watches is a perfect investment that lasts for years to come and fits perfectly with your every outfit and style. Our range of classic watches aren't just a great perfect formal and casual accessory, but a time machine that takes you back to memories. Explore our collection of timeless watches that can reflect your taste, personality, and personal style. Our exclusive collection of carefully curated, affordable luxury watches is what you need to make a personalized style statement. You can take pride in your prized possession, handing it over to the next generations as your most loved asset that they can also own and display with the same pride. These high-quality pieces stand the test of time, giving exceptional value and return on your investment. Go to la-touraine.com and use code DOB at checkout and get 10% off.
If you're looking for unique sports apparel, check out Streaker Sports. They've dug deep into the archives and have brought back some incredible defunct team logos and have even created entire defunct league collections. They also have collections paying homage to sports culture, including the Miracle on Ice, Slap Shot, Caddyshack, the Mighty Ducks, and even have a license with Wiffle Ball and USA Hockey. Only for Drunk on Broad listeners, use code BROAD at checkout to get 10% off anything at streakersports.com. Again, that's 10% off anything at streakersports.com with discount code BROAD.
All right, we're back. We're back trying to figure out what this team friggin' needs to be able to get it together. I don't know if they need some kind of like huge shakeup, some kind of spark. I don't feel like they're going to be in a position, right? So there's already been, right? So some of the big names off the board already, right? The Angels take Ohtani off the board completely. Where are you at, Eric? Where you're at in terms of what do you think this team needs? And we'll go over some of the deals that have already happened.
So top three needs, definitely like a right-handed power type bat for outfield / maybe first base. That way, if you need to get Bryce a day, you can. I feel like you could always add some bullpen depth. The bullpen's been really good, but one thing that's been a little alarming to me is the amount of time Alvarado spent on the IL. Yeah. And then I'm waiting for it to happen. I know he hasn't been as effective as he was earlier in the year, but Matt Strahm has the amount of innings he's been used in already, and his effectiveness, you can kind of see is already starting to wane a little bit. I'm nervous about having really Soto be maybe the only reliable one, especially if he's going to be used a lot. So I wouldn't mind maybe another not necessarily even a back end lefty, just another lefty we can use in the bullpen there. I just don't think you could ever have enough relief help. And starting pitching, it's good. I would be fine with adding like a depth move. I don't really know who else. I've seen like Eduardo Rodriguez's name out there. I've seen Michael Lorenzen, both from Detroit. I've seen maybe Dylan Cease. I think we talked about him before with the White Sox. Those guys are all guys I wouldn't mind having but the thing is just the cost for starting pitching at the deadline is like what you're paying for basically a rental guy is, I think, more than what you need to. I know, you always have to worry about an injury or whatever, but so I think if at the right price, we can get a nice like depth type move. I wouldn't mind getting something like that, but I think our main priority has to be that power bat who has, the ability to actually make an impact in this lineup. And there's a couple guys whose names have been thrown out there, but is there anyone in particular you were thinking, or
the guy I keep coming back to is Duvall.
Yeah,
Duvall seems to me like a logical. He's got some position versatility. He can be a right-handed power bat that you can put in your lineup to kind of mix up the lefty, trend. That it just seems to me like the best way for this team to get better is for the players that are already on this roster, because whatever you're going to add is not going to translate to you're not getting like Nolan Arenado is not a guy who seems like he's going to be on the move. They took him off the table. You know, like you're not adding an elite upper echelon player to this lineup unless Dave Dombrowski pulls something out that we have absolutely no idea that he's been, cooking in a crock pot somewhere for on the back end of this. I look at this and go like CJ Crone is a guy that I had my eye on that I would have liked. Right. But he and Randall Grichuk go to the Angels.
Angels.
And
yeah.
The Angels are
pushing all in.
Right. And I don't know how smart that is, because at the end of the year, unless you've got an inside track to know that you're going to be able to sign Ohtani, you're missing out on the opportunity to reshape your entire farm system. Because if he walks and all you walk away with is a compensation pick,
yeah,
that's worse than what the Red Sox did when they sold Babe Ruth to the Yankees. And to me, he would be better off in a high market city that he would be able to be on national broadcast, to be showcased more. But he's not going anywhere. He's not getting traded, right? The Braves make a trade for a backup infielder from the Royals. And then you got the Rangers, right? The Rangers are playing incredibly well, right? They go out and they get Jordan Montgomery and Chris Stratton from the Cardinals. They also, turn around on Saturday and get Max Scherzer from the Mets. They're jumping all in. The Dodgers? The Blue Jays get Jordan Hicks from the Cardinals.
Yep.
And then who did the Dodgers? The Dodgers get Joe Kelly and
Joe Kelly.
God, I'm missing. There's another guy. Yeah. There's another starting pitcher. Lance Lynn.
That's right.
From the White Sox. Like, there's a lot of guys that are being moved. Like if I'm Dave Dombrowski, I'm calling the Cardinals and going, "Who's on the menu? What do you need? What do you got?" Because they seem like they're selling basically everybody other than the people that play first and third for them.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot of movement. I just think, like, for some of these guys, the returns have been really, like, astronomical. Obviously, I think the Rangers going in to get Scherzer was kind of they're obviously going all in this year. They're getting with DeGrom going out for the season and probably most of next season too, with another Tommy John surgery. They need to kind of strengthen that. And really, I mean, they're a really good team this year. I think the Cardinals definitely have some guys to pick from. I'm kind of with you though. I like Duvall, to me, kind of fits it because he's versatile, right? He can play left field, he can play first base. Solid OPS so far. I think he's got like an 872 OPS or whatever. Another name I've seen out there was Tommy Pham. Not a shiny name at all, but he doesn't strike out a lot, which is something this lineup kind of needs. I don't necessarily know if I want Tommy Pham or not. The one guy who I've seen thrown out there who I want absolutely no part of, Teoscar Hernandez. If people so he hits home runs. He hits home runs, which the Phillies do need right now. However,
the floor is yours.
If people are frustrated with Schwarber, Turner, Castellanos striking out, you're basically adding a worse version of all of those guys in Teoscar Hernandez. He is a right-handed Kyle Schwarber, who's probably worse. So I want absolutely no part of that. We don't need another guy who strikes out, over 32% of the time or whatever it is. I mean, Duvall has some of it. He's a bit of a strikeout guy too, but I think some of the other stuff he does could kind of counterbalance that. But yeah, I don't know. There's not a ton out there. Like we said, I don't think there's going to be a move. We're not going to make a huge move. I don't think the need is necessarily there because of what we already have. These guys just our guys have to do what they can do. And then you're obviously getting a couple complimentary guys in there because I don't think we're a World Series team with an outfield of, if Schwarber's DHing with, Rojas, Marsh, and Castellanos. I like Rojas a lot out there, but it's not like outfield you need some pop from. And there's really no pop in that front, except for Castellanos has that potential, but it just hasn't, been doing a ton of it. So I don't know. It's a really tough spot. Really tough spot.
You're missing a ton of power.
Yeah.
You're just missing a lot
Reese.
of power. And that Reese Hoskins injury is just looming so large over this season. I just never thought that when that injury happens, that you have the ability in the guys that you have on the roster to be able to kind of cover that. You're just not getting the production that you got last year. You're not getting the production. You're not getting kind of any power from, you're not getting the production from Harper, obviously, because of the injury. And I really think that that's an injury thing. That's kind of like when Ohtani came back from the Tommy John, you kind of saw the same trajectory in terms of power, but you're not getting power from Turner. You're not getting power from basically anybody other than Schwarber.
Mm-hmm.
And as Schwarber, it's either all or nothing. It's either he crushes it 450 feet or he strikes out. And to have that guy, and I know that having him at the top of the lineup and all the statistical stuff, he's a guy that I want later on in the lineup when guys are on base. I want guys that are going to get on base early and let him come up and hit where it's not such a hole in the lineup, but he's just not, they're just not playing real well. And I'm looking at, the other thing to remember is how young Marsh is. I think Marsh plays a little older, maybe.
And he just looks older with
He
the beard and all, but yeah.
He's in his young 20s.
I think he's 25, yeah.
So that's a guy that, could he be? He doesn't have the power to necessarily be your corner outfielder, but I feel like if you had power other places in the lineup,
you could hide it.
You can hide it. You can hide him and Johan Rojas in that 8-9 slot at the back end of the lineup where you can get those two guys on base and have Turner, Harper, Castellanos, Schwarber, Stott, Realmuto, any combination of those guys come up and have all those guys on base. I love what that could do. But when those are the guys that are being productive and those are the guys that are scoring runs and you're not getting production from the top end of that lineup, it's really a really hard place to say, what do I do? That's why I really feel like Dombrowski really hasn't made a move, because I'm not really sure, one, at this point, what's available, because there's been a lot of moves, right? Even so the Mets are selling, right? The Cardinals are obviously selling, the Rockies. But you've had a bunch of teams already cherry pick a lot of their best guys. You're either sitting on something huge that you're trying to work out the details of that you haven't really told anybody about, or you really don't know what the hell to do because there's not a ton of questions that you can answer with a move because the guys on your roster aren't playing real well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think maybe it could be a combo. Well, I mean, Dombrowski is typically known for being very hush hush about any moves that are being made. So we probably won't know really about that until the time comes. But yeah, there's not really a lot out there. And, obviously getting that third wild card spot last year helped us a lot. But it also makes this time of year a little bit different than it was in the past, because now you have a lot more teams that are vying for that spot. So you have less sellers, I feel like, because you have guys now who have that chance who can get into that third wild card spot. So I feel like the guys that have already been out there, Scherzer, Lynn strikes out a ton of guys, but he's kind of been like Nola this year, where his ERA is really inflated because of the long ball. He's been giving up a lot of home runs, but he does have good stuff. He's been striking out a ton of guys. So those guys are off the board. But yeah, I just feel like there's not really any big names that are really about to be moved at this point, unless there's something that's going to happen that I can't think of or haven't heard about.
Do you have any interest in? I'm going to give you two guys. Do you have any interest in a guy like Michael Lorenzen from the Tigers or Jack Flaherty from the Cardinals?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind either guy as long as the price is right. Flaherty can be inconsistent, but he has shown some pretty good stuff this year. He's one of those guys who, but if you're not you're also not getting him to be your number 1 or 2 starter, right? He would be a 4 or 5 type guy. So I think you can kind of deal with some of the inconsistency there as long as he's going to give you a few good games. I like Lorenzen a lot, actually.
Okay.
I think I actually probably prefer him over Flaherty. He's had a pretty good season. I think he's kind of stumbled a little bit lately, but his start to the season was pretty good. So I wouldn't mind either of those guys. It's kind of like one of those depth moves that I was talking about. They're not going to be major like impact guys, but especially when you're planning on a stretch run, most of these starters have not really. Rangers started the season a little bit late, but other than that, these guys are throwing innings. Nola is up there toward the top of the league in innings. And him and Wheeler are both coming off long postseason runs too. So I get nervous about what that's going to be like later on in the season. But so I wouldn't mind having that extra, an extra depth piece or two there to stretch out this rotation a little bit.
Okay. What about, I'm looking at like Teoscar Hernandez as an outfielder from the Mariners who could be a guy that could be appealing.
He's a strikeout guy.
But he's your strikeout guy, right?
Yeah.
So what about a team like, I know we had talked about the Padres.
Mm-hmm.
And the Padres are 5 games out of that last wild card spot. Could they be a team that just says, I don't think we're making up 5 games? Do they sell guys like Blake Snell, Josh Hader? I know those guys are extremely productive guys, but I don't know what you would have to give up to get them. Right?
Yeah.
They're upper echelon guys.
Right, exactly. They're definitely upper echelon guys. I saw Hader's name at one point, but now I thought I saw something this morning that said he's most likely staying put.
Okay.
I think the Padres are in a tough spot here because, they're very borderline, but with that lineup and that pitching staff, if they go on a run, they can be pretty dangerous. I think I just saw they're 6-4 in their last 10. And going back to run differential here, they're a plus 63. So in terms of numbers, that's the 3rd highest run differential in the NL right now. Mm-hmm. So I think I would like for them to sell. It would make, I think, the stretch run for the Phillies a little bit easier. But I think that front office is going to, the amount of money they invested in this team, I think they have to try to go for it. I know, a couple of weeks ago, there was all the talk about Juan Soto and all that, but I think that was a pipe dream. They're not trading.
Yeah, I think that 2 years from now, I think that's a very realistic option for them to bring him in on when his deal expires.
Absolutely.
Considering he wants to get back to the East Coast, he wants to get closer to his family. And the fact that there's a relationship there with Trey Turner, with Bryce Harper, Kevin Long, there's a lot of dots to be able to connect him back to Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they're if that deal was like, all right, well, how do we just expedite that process and just get him here a year and a half earlier? But I do agree that like when I'm looking at the names, I had to go to pull up the list on ESPN. Like the names are not super shiny names.
No.
Like a guy like Justin Verlander, right? Like obviously a guy who signs. The only way I entertain that is if I can get the Mets to pay for either all or pretty much most of that salary.
Mm-hmm.
But even a guy like there's a guy that's popping up, the guy that we saw yesterday, Rich Hill, that they don't scream, we're making a move to win a World Series kind of guys.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing though. I think that's where you got to, and that's where your, scouting team has to figure out, okay, which guy is going to make the biggest impact for our club? Who fits in the clubhouse, who fills the need or needs that we have right now. Those needs are power right-handed bat and a guy who has, to me, an OPS over 800. Because right now I think we have one guy who fits that category. So you just need
a guy for you.
Yeah,
I think I found a guy for you. He's got 16 home runs.
Oh, okay, different guy.
He's got an OPS over 800. He's a right-handed right-handed, bats right, throws right outfielder.
Lane
Thomas.
Oh, Lane Thomas, yeah.
From the Nationals.
The only thing that, and I would love him, honestly, he would fit all of that. I just think because he's young, he might be under team control for a while, and I'm thinking the Nats are going to want to hang on to him. And they're not really that close to a rebuild, I don't think. They're still kind of a little bit away, but he would cost a lot just because of how much more time he's under team control for. But I would.
So hold on, I'm trying to find his contract. But you're right, he's young. He's only 20. He's 23. So he's young, but I don't know, just trying to like scour through these names to try to find something that might stick. But you're right, man. The pickings are slim. It's not looking like they're going to be, the problem with this is with adding that third wild card, you've now got, instead of like before when you just had the 4 divisions and you had 4 teams that were, out of those 4 teams, you might have 9-10 teams that were really in contention. So the pool of players.
Right. You had 20 teams selling. Yeah, exactly.
So now, right now, like if you include the Padres, right, you've got, 6, 7, 8. You've got 8 teams in content within 5 games of that within a chance of a wild card spot, and then you add the 3 division leaders on top of that. You're talking about basically half the league is buying, and half the league is thinking, do I want to buy or do I want to sell? It's hard.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to kind of put a finger on it.
Yeah, by my counts, it looks like there's about 9 teams that will be sellers. You have about 4 in the AL: Detroit, Chicago, Kansas City, and Oakland, right?
Yep.
And then we saw the Mets start to kind of sell.
Mm-hmm.
And then below them, you have the Pirates, the Cardinals, the Nationals, and the Rockies. So just like, having that third wild card spot takes so many other teams, makes more teams either buyers or we're going to stay put with what we have. So it kind of changes the whole dynamic of the trade deadline a little bit.
It's wild. And the division that's most wild to me is that AL East.
Oh.
The AL East with, like you've got Tampa at the top of the wild card, but you've also got the Blue Jays right behind them. The Red Sox are right on the outside of that third wild card spot, and then the Yankees are right below them. That division is wild.
Yeah, and the Yankees are 5 games over 500, and they're in dead last in their division. I mean, they would be – I'm just looking. They'd be leading the AL Central. They'd be like 3rd in the AL West. I mean, they're not – like, obviously they have injuries. They've struggled this year. Like, for a Yankees team, they're not great. But the fact that you're the team in your division that's in last place has a .524 winning percentage is kind of wild. That is a crazy division. That's a fun division, though.
On some level, though, it does make me a little happy.
Oh yeah, anytime a New York team's in the bottom of anything, I'm a big fan of
that. It does make me feel a little bit good.
Yeah.
So, all right, Eric. Anything we didn't talk about that I want to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I think all my stuff was mostly trade deadline related, and just this offense has to get together. We got to have at least one game this series where we put up at least 8 runs. That's my goal for this. I want 3 out of 4, and I want at least one 8-run game this series. I want to see this offense do something.
I agree. I'm going to give you a little bit of homework because I think I'm going to try to do something fun. We had talked about the last episode. We talked about the immaculate grid and kind of that whole craze. So I want you to try to come up with a list of guys that are like best go-tos for the immaculate grid.
Okay.
So think of guys that have played, like I'm going to give you here's the example. Edwin Jackson.
Edwin Jackson's been all over the place.
Edwin Jackson has played, I want to say he's played for 13 or 14 or 15 teams.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
So I want you to come up with a list of guys that like could be a go-to for the immaculate grid.
Okay. I can do that. That's fun.
We'll have a little segment where we'll try to maybe create the immaculate grid, the cheat sheet for just remind it, because a lot of that stuff, those guys get lost in the sauce where they're looking at, like, you don't remember that a guy played like on a trade deadline, right? He might have got traded at the end of a season, played that end of the season, and then signed with a different team. So
I've seen that quite a few times, actually. I was talking to my brother earlier this when that grid first came out, and I'm like, you know who played for like a surprising amount of teams, and I only remember like 2 or 3 of them. Jim Thome. He played for, obviously he's known as Cleveland, Philly for a little bit. I knew he was with the White Sox and Orioles for the tail. Did you know he was a Dodger for 17 games? Like there were certain things I just totally forgot. He went to some of those teams. Yeah. So that was one of those ones where I'm like, yeah, you just kind of forget. And like Jim Thome's a big name guy. Like it's not like even like, Edwin Jackson, who, people have heard of, but he's not a household name. But so there's that would be that's some fun homework. I don't mind doing that one.
All right. Hey, let's go out. Let's do final thoughts. What do you got for me for final thoughts?
I think the next what do we got? About 30 hours or so until the trade deadline hits here are going to be interesting. I just, I don't think anyone should expect anything real big. If we get something big for the right price, good. I'm definitely, tempering my expectations and looking for, lower impact, maybe starter, maybe corner, outfield, first base, right-handed bat, something like that. I'm not expecting them to be super busy at this time. So I don't think, and I know people might get mad about it and say this team needs to make moves to make the playoffs. But we said it, 2 or 3 times already. This team doesn't need to make a ton of moves. They just need the guys on the team to reach their potential and do what they're supposed to do. So hopefully, Trey Turner hears this and starts getting it together.
Yeah, listen, final thoughts. I just need this team to kind of get their shit together. I need the guys to play like they're playing on, like it says, like they should be playing on the back of the baseball card, because it's not what we've seen. Play fundamentally sound, because they could capitalize and really go on another run. And there is nothing better in this town when all 4 teams are playing at the same time. When you've got a Phillies in the middle of a playoff run, you got the Eagles kicking off a season, you got the Sixers and Flyers. When this city is on fire, this city is electric, and you could really get that burst into the mid and late 20s, where this city could really be at the top of the sports game. And I'm kind of starving for it. I really want that for, we started kicking off by the show by, talking about the fan base tailgating for a jersey release. Yeah. This city will get behind anything and everything productive. So I just need them to get their stuff together. Whatever you got to do. I'm not sure if you all need like a day off, a night out, whatever you got to do. But let's get your stuff together, because, man, we need this.
Yep.
Eric, we will touch base at some point. We will talk about the Immaculate Grid and our list of players. But on the way out, go Phils.
Yep, go Phils.
This is the Broad Street Line, where Philly sports fans leave all of their sports hot takes. Call 267-405-3062 and show us your passion for Philly sports. Don't forget to tune in every Wednesday at 8:30 when we listen to your live reactions to the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat.
Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2